Are you ready? The Kornelia Stephanie Show. Wake up to love, your call to action. Join Kornelia as she empowers others to live heaven on earth. Kornelia teaches listeners how to be the authority over yourself, embracing your inner guru. Feel yourself uplifted into limitless expansion, integrating ease and grace in a changing world. This show will cover topics such as unconditional love, your physical body, how to be in extraordinary relationships, create financial and emotional wealth, embracing entrepreneurship in the new earth. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Stories of Hope Today. If you're listening and tuning into the show today, my first guest, we're going to talk about grief. And grief right now is a topic that so many people can relate to with all the changes that are happening in the world, whether that is the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a relationship, the loss of an old way of living and an old way of being, the loss of a dying world. So many of us are finding ourselves without the directions moving forward, people leaving our lives. And a lot of times that can be very challenging to deal with if we don't know how to process our grief. So I'm going to introduce us to our first guest today on Stories of Hope, advanced grief recovery specialist, Dr. Victoria Wilson Crane, supports adults grieving losses. Educational innovator and leader, Victoria used her academic writing skills and love of words as therapy as she faced the sudden, unexpected death of her niece in 2020. Her award-winning memoir and self-help book, 16 Days, published in January of 2022, provides advice for those supporting others in shock, grief, following sudden death. It helps people feel more comfortable to know what to say and do when someone dies. Welcome to the show today, Victoria. Dr. Victoria, it's nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
So you just published your book in early this year, January of 2022. So tell us the story about what got you to write that book when you were faced with a sudden loss.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, my niece, as you mentioned, died suddenly in January 2020. Normal, healthy 22-year-old, had what we thought then as normal kind of viral symptoms. It wasn't COVID, it was kind of pre-COVID. And it turned out she had an infection called encephalitis, which is when your body reacts in kind of overdrive to a virus. And it infected her brain, and there was nothing that could be done for her really, and she died within just a couple of days of being quite unwell. So a really enormous shock to me and my family. We thought people just get over these sorts of things and people recover, and that wasn't the case.
Oh my God, that must have been so frightening. So January of 2020, COVID didn't really get announced until March of
That's
2020, right? So
Yeah.
that must have been really frightening at that time.
It was, and it was sort of in the news. There was some sort of indication of something was happening in different parts of the world, and that was going on. But it wasn't that in the end, ultimately, that she died from. But actually, what that led me to was I was trying my best to find my own way through that as her auntie, but also trying to support family members who, with my perception, were even closer to her than I was, and I was very close to her. But she had two sets of parents and two brothers, grandparents. It was difficult to try and find where my space was in that. So where I found a little bit of solace was writing about it. And it mainly came from so many people said to us, I don't know what to say. And I also wouldn't know what to say in that kind of situation. So what I tried to do with my writing was think about the stories that happened. It's called 16 Days because that was the number of days between her death and the funeral. And some interesting things happened, some funny things happened, some sad things happened. And I've just tried to record those and then note down anything that may be useful to other people who are supporting people who are grieving, because there are some very simple practical things that I think anybody can do that can just make you feel a bit confident that I'm doing the right thing. Because many people might be thinking, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say for the best. And as a result, some people retreat and do nothing. So I just want to make sure people feel a little bit more confident to do things.
Right. And so you're offering the modality of writing, of using words, of putting words behind how you might be feeling as the person that is in the loss, or even observing the loss of people that you care about. And maybe it's not your immediate family, but if you're affected by it and it's affecting you personally, you're saying that to begin with using the modality of writing and words. So can you share with us, like, what some of your writing was about? Like, can you give us an example of what that would sound like?
Absolutely. So it's definitely not a diary. It doesn't go day by day, but it's just some of the thoughts from the experiences that happened to us. So one funny thing, people brought lots of food, which was so helpful and so supportive. And rather than people saying to us, "Let us know if you need anything," they said, "I'm going to show up with a lasagna, or I'm going to show up with a cottage pie, or I'm going to show up with some food that you can put in the oven." And that was so simple and so helpful, because I think sometimes the temptation is, oh well, I'll wait for the grieving person to tell me what they need, but actually what you need is for the person not to be dead and the person to come back. So you can't really think about some of those practical things that you need, and you do need to eat. So one of my chapters is around, is she eating, which is a question that was asked of me by a number of family members of my sister, my niece's mum. And I said, oh yeah, she's eating. Of course she's eating. She's just about to have a second helping of a shepherd's pie, actually, that somebody left for us. Um, but that was so helpful and so supportive. And I think the kind of extrapolation of that is, anticipate what the person might need and do it. So that might be practical of, does the dog need walking? Does the garden need mowing? Do they need some help with incoming mail, or appointments need to be rearranged? Any practical help like that, over and above the emotional support that everyone wants to show in terms of hand holding and passing a tissue and all those kinds of things, can be so helpful during those times.
So what you're saying is that rather than retreating and not saying anything because you don't want to intrude, or you don't want to feel like you're you know uncomfortable in the situation. And so what you're saying is that you can use uh, your those practical gifts of, I can run an errand for you, or I'm going to bring the lasagna or the pie. By that is one way that you can show that you care, and that is saying something.
Definitely, yeah,
Right.
definitely. And even to offer, I'm going to the supermarket and I can get this or this, is much easier question than, would you like anything? Because the anything I want you can't provide. The anything I want is this not to be happening to me. So I think grieving people, often don't have the headspace to make lots of decisions, and actually they're in a whole train of making lots of decisions about very serious things that they never expected to be doing, particularly if the death is sudden and affecting somebody so young as it was for us. So anything you can do to simplify that, I think, is often well received. There's no hard and fast rules, but I think some of these things are quite universally understood as being quite helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's really an important, offering to give to someone, that knowing that they need that practical support and that practical help. Now, you've written your book. Do you want to share with the audience where they can access your book? Because you published it in January of 2022, this year, right?
I did, yeah, thank
So
you.
where is your book? How can they get a hold of it?
Sure, it's available on Amazon, in the usual places, so you'll find it there. I do supply books, and I'm happy to ship them worldwide, and I have shipped worldwide. And I actually quite like that. My niece loved travel, So my books have gone worldwide. So they're available also from my website. And I think we might be able to pop it in the show notes, but it's books.drvictoriawilsoncrane.co.uk. And I'm more than
You need to say that a lot slower because a lot of times people they're driving when they're listening to these shows and they're not with their pen. So please go slow with that, telling us where to get it.
I will. So Amazon is hopefully easy, but my own website, and you will receive some additional items as well with a direct sale from books.drvictoriawilsoncrane.co.uk.
Good, good. That was good. And then now, are you on social media as well, on Facebook or?
I am indeed. Yeah, you can find me LinkedIn. I have quite a presence on LinkedIn. I've also got a presence on Twitter and Facebook, my own page, but also there's a page for 16 days. So it'll be quite easy to find those with an easy search.
Good. And so when you see this show on social media next week, be sure to also put your links
I will.
below, Dr. Victoria, so that we can, make it easier for people to find you. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm sending you so many blessings, and thank you so much for educating and giving us these beautiful tools so that other people can have it easier when they're dealing with grief and loss. Thank you, Dr. Victoria Wilson Crane, for coming on the show today. We're
Thank
going
you.
to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Stories of Hope today. My next guest is also from England. We have quite a few guests that come through from England. We have a few members in our community at the KS Media Group app that are also from England. So Julia Paulette Hollenbery is an expert on the power of happiness. Hello. We need that. We need experts on the power of happiness, joy, and relationships. She's the author of The Healing Power of Pleasure, 7 Medicines for Rediscovering the Innate Joy of Being. This was published by Finhorn Press. She's a body worker, a therapist, a mystic, a healer, and a teacher. For more than 25 years, she has guided countless of clients into deep confidence, intuition, and self-authority. She's passionate about sharing her lifelong love of the mystery, real sensual relationship, and the life of the body. She lives and works in London. Welcome to the show today.
Hello, thank you, Cornelia.
It's wonderful to have you. So you are a specialist and an expert in happiness. And so in order to be a specialist and expert in happiness, we have had to have been on the other side of that.
For sure, I have moved through many, many difficult years, indeed decades.
Decades. So I really want to hit those decades. I really want to talk about the traumas and the sadness and the transcendence of the pain from the past. What do you want to take us there, and then how did you get here?
So as a child, I felt very lost, and at the same time I was very connected out in the garden to kind of the big everything. But at home and in schools, I felt really confused, lost, small. It felt to me like everybody was talking up here and it didn't make any kind of sense. And I felt unseen, and I felt it very difficult to explain what my experiences were. So when I was a teenager, I had the first in a series of breakdowns, again in my mid-20s and 30s. So I have been on a huge transformational healing journey. And I guess what I want to say to people is that the work works, and that whoever you are and whatever the situation is that you're facing, it's definitely possible to heal and thrive from it.
Right. So you're saying that you were, many people can relate to this of not being seen, not feeling like they fit in, not feeling like they belong, and dealing with past pain or pain and not really knowing what to do with it. And those breakdowns that you went through in your childhood, then in your teens, and then again at every stage, were all wake up calls to guide you deeper into your own inner healing.
Right. And I think that as a child, I spoke non-stop, but really I felt like I wasn't communicating anything. It was, of course, the masks that I wore to cover up the deep soul stuff that I didn't think I could really communicate.
Oh, good. That's good. So you were a talker, always trying to take up the space rather than getting quiet to listen to what's really here.
On one level and in one aspect, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you, so with the breakdowns, you then were guided into the right communities, the right teachers, the right people, the coaches, the healers showed up for you?
Yes, and it's a journey. I also made some wrong turns. You know, there were some bad and dangerous teachers. There were some teachers that went off. So knowing when was the right time to leave was also important. But I had, and probably still have, a tremendous determination. As a child, I knew that I would one day write a book. And I always had this big sense inside. So I was driven to become who I knew that I really was. And I was indeed lucky enough to meet many excellent therapists and teachers. And I'm very grateful, of course, incredibly grateful. I feel really blessed that I've been able to make this journey. And I'm now in a very different place, of course.
Yeah, so now you are living in happiness. I'm sure you have days of sadness or stress like anyone else, but happiness is a presence in your life that you have access to, which is really rewarding, right? After that life's path that you were talking about. And so you wrote a book. Tell us about your book.
I'll show you the book.
Show us the
Uh,
book. Hold it up for a while. Hold it up for a while. Front cover first. Healing. I can't.
The Healing Power of Pleasure, 7 Medicines for Rediscovering the Innate Joy of Being.
Fabulous. I love the colors too. And
The
yeah. And so the healing power of pleasure. Were you the type of person that didn't allow pleasure into your life?
I think that we all need to feel worthy in order to allow ourselves to really receive pleasure. And in my case, I'm very kinesthetic, so I was always connected to the body. And at the same time, there was so much self-criticism that it was really hard for me in certain aspects to allow myself to enjoy even food, you know, in the old days. And now, yes, I do feel blessed to live in happiness. And of course, there's sadness and frustration and anger and upset from time to time, but they last more like minutes than days. And when it arises, I know to inquire into it and to ask what's going on. So, in that way, the upset shifts and changes and becomes a resource again for generating more good stuff.
So, what can people expect when they read your book? How can your book help them to embrace pleasure? Because I know that even a lot of people that have religious programming from the past, pleasure isn't something that they are, encouraged to practice. So, what can people expect during the time when they read your book, The Healing Power of Pleasure?
Thank you. So the book, um, I talk about the universe of deliciousness, which is this sensitive, sensual, spiritual realm known by mystics throughout the centuries. And the book takes people on a journey from mess, personal, collective, global mess, into magic, into the universe of deliciousness. And there are 7 practical paradigm shifting medicines, which are slow body depth, relationship, pleasure, power, and potency. And I love them. Just saying the words always puts a smile on my face. Like, they definitely contain energy, and they're sequential. One follows the other. And so there's a lot of inspiration, if you like, and philosophy, and chucking some ideas around. And there is a feast, a wealth of practical exercises. So there's over 50 practical exercises in the book. Each of the 7 medicines has 7. I think 1 or 2 of the chapters might have slightly more than that. So there's a way to understand and implement these medicines into daily life.
Right. And that is the way, that you can become embodied in your receiving, right? Because we have to be willing to receive. When you spoke those words, I just wanted to bring my hands up and say, yes, I am ready to receive, because we have to be willing to receive the pleasure, to receive the words that you were speaking that put a smile on our face.
Exactly. And we are taught the wrong messages. We're taught that we need to get pleasure from the outside, from a person out there, or an object, or a device, or a piece of entertainment out there will bring us pleasure. But the truth is that we need to open to receiving pleasure, to being pleasure, because the source of our pleasurableness, of our happiness, is absolutely here in our bodies.
And our body really likes to feel pleasure. So rather than feeling guilt and feeling guilty about things, making the choice to use and feel pleasure instead will calm your nervous system, will make you healthier. It'll do so many things. Let's tell the audience where we can get that beautiful book of yours so that they can start implementing and practicing pleasure principles into their daily lives.
Thank you. It's available in many places. It's on Amazon, of course. It's in Barnes and Noble, Inner Traditions. Here in Britain, it's in Waterstones, online. It's in all the online shops and in a number of independent bookshops too.
Good.
But anywhere you can buy books online, you'll find it.
Yeah, put it back up again and say the name of the book while you're holding it up.
Thank you. It's called The Healing Power of Pleasure. 7 medicines for rediscovering the innate joy of being. And I feel that you've understood very much the message of it.
Oh yeah, I did. Definitely. Definitely. I'm glad that you wrote the book. It's a fabulous book. Definitely will be checking it out. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's tell the audience where they can find you on social media and connect with you there.
And just to say, the book is being very well received. My website is theuniverseofdeliciousness.com, and I'm on all the social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm Julia Paulette Hollenbery, and I'd love to hear from people, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today to inspire pleasure into our bodies and into our life. It was wonderful to have you here. For those of you that are listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We'll see you again next time. Stay tuned for Rosita Perez, and after that, the Diane McClay Show. It's always an honor and a pleasure to be with you. Many thousands of blessings to you. Take good care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Great to meet you, Kornelia. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Kornelia Stephanie Show, Wake Up to Love, your call to action. Tune in each week on Transformation Talk Radio. Kornelia's joy is to engage others in practical ways, showing us how to live in the new earth in harmony with our true nature. For more information on Kornelia and her extraordinary work, or to listen to past shows, go to her website at korneliastephanie.com.